Hi, everybody. I'm Hannah Hudson, and I'm going to be talking about writing development technology, especially focusing on high school. So, to give you a little context on to choose or on why I chose what I chose, I really thought about a few things. I know that I'm the high school teacher in here, and so it's a little different for me than it is for all of you. But I really wanted to go with something that I could actually use in my classroom next year. So I really thought, what do the majority of high schoolers need? I work at South Oldham High School, where we have a really strong writing expectation for our students. Of course, we still have students that struggle with writing overall, but I want to do something that can help even my most advanced students in their writing. And so I really thought, what is it that they're missing from their writing? What is it year after year that I keep saying, you've got to make sure that you have this, because I think it's really important. And I wanted to go a little bit beyond science because science is really specific and it's awesome. But I wanted to think, what can I give to them that even when they are not in a science class, how could they use this to help them with their writing? And so the one thing that stood out to me was sourcing. And so this was something that I noticed when I was looking at my student assessment profile, when I was looking at the writing. I was looking at a high school senior, and she was writing about a couple different research papers. And what I noticed in her writing was that she was citing things, but she wasn't citing them quite right, or she didn't really know when to cite them. So some things almost looked like plagiarism. She just didn't have it in the right spot. And she also didn't have a reference page. So that's a really kind of upsetting as well. And then I noticed with my students, I have mostly freshmen and sophomores. Freshmen don't get any idea on sourcing. Sophomores begin to get the idea of sourcing within their English classes. But when we are doing research papers in biology, when we're talking about research behind different aspects of chemistry in a lab or something like that, I really want them to be able to source. And a lot of our presentations involve sourcing, and that's something they really struggle with. So, like I said, sourcing is super important. And the reason why it's important is that it's necessary. One thing that I read this year that has stuck with me throughout this entire 5-week course is that most assignments in late high school and college involve multi-paragraph research writing. Now, this is important in a few different ways, of course, because as a biology teacher, a chemistry teacher, I don't often have my students write a lot of multi-paragraph research writing. They do some, but not a whole lot. And we really have to prepare them for their future. Now, some students, of course, aren't going to go to college, but I work in a school where many of our students do, the majority do. And so even students that don't maybe necessarily go to a 4-year traditional college, they may go to a tech school or a 2-year college where they might be able to use this as well. And so one thing I kind of thought about is that sourcing is more than just making sure you cite sources, right? We really want to make sure that our students aren't plagiarizing. That's important. But a lot of this sourcing also comes along with formatting. And so sourcing really becomes part of a writing presentation. We have been writing an APA throughout this entire course. That is a different style of writing, right? You have to have certain subtitles. There's different quirks about the subtitles. What do you call your references? How do you cite your sources? Things like that. And so it's really important that students realize that. Because of all of the little tweaks and the little ins and outs of sourcing and formatting, sourcing becomes really confusing. So that's what I noticed in my senior writer. She's a very strong writer. Her just sources are not exactly as detailed maybe as they're supposed to be or put in the right spots. And so it's something that I don't want to have students go to college and just be thrown into it, or I don't want them to start on it on their senior year because I think that they'll be too far behind, because it's going to take time to master this. So the earlier we start introducing them to this and we start really helping them use this source or use sourcing, the better that their sourcing is going to be by the time they get to college. I didn't really get to do my sourcing until my senior year of high school, and I struggled majorly in college at the beginning, but then I finally got a hold of it. And in my writing in this master course, I got an even better hold on it. But I want my students to be ready and prepared by the time they get to college. So the technology tool I chose because of that is the Purdue Online Writing Lab, or Purdue OWL. I'm sure all of you have used this at some point in your academic career. And so this tool is really helpful because it is updated constantly. As soon as a different formatting changes, this website is updated. And I remember in college, I was given a few books that we had to buy that could help us with formatting. But this is better than anything else I've ever had. And so this tool really helps show students how to use references and what should be put in their writing. And it also includes detailed information as well as examples to help students see what it's like. So sometimes they'll explain something, but it may not make sense. But then you have that paper at the end, and we'll get to this a little bit more in a moment. But you have a paper at the end that kind of details everything out. They give you an example of what a source from a journal is, or a source from a book might be, and how you would put that together. So it's really awesome. So thinking about that, I would kind of wanted to break down how I would use Purdue OWL in a classroom, because I realize it's just a website, but students sometimes need to know about the important websites that can help them in their writing and long term. So the first thing that would happen was that there would need to be a discussion about sourcing. This might take place in an English classroom. If I talk with the English teachers and they're not using it or they want it backed up, I might do it in my science classroom, just depending on how it all lines up. So you would have to talk about what is sourcing and formatting, why is it used, and how is it used. So that would be quite a lengthy lesson because there's a lot of information there. But remember, you're at the beginning, you're just kind of letting them gently move forward, right? Not throwing them quite into the deep end of the pool quite yet. So after you do that, students need to see examples of sourcing in paper formatting. You're going to go through an example. This could be an example that you've already written. This could be an example that you write together, maybe a paragraph or so, but they need to see what does it look like and what are you talking about. After that, you're going to go through the Purdue OWL website with the students. So bring it up on your computer, kind of show them the ins and outs. Where would you go for this? What does this look like? The different ways you can use it. And then maybe you want to give them some practice. So give them an article, have the students write a paragraph or two making an argument using information from the article to support their argument. Okay. Then after that, they're going to use Purdue OWL to help them format the paper and cite their sources correctly. So that's really important because it gives them an opportunity to kind of interact with the Purdue OWL website. Then you're going to discuss it when it's done. How did it go? What were some issues? What were some confusing pieces? And I guarantee that a lot of students, if not all of students, are going to be very confused after the very beginning. And that's fine. That's what's expected. But at least they're starting to be introduced to it. And then what's really important is that you keep using this throughout the year, or even better, throughout their entire school career, because it's not going to be mastered in a day. It's not even going to be mastered in a year. It's going to take some time. So this is why it's really important, I think necessary, that students have this resource earlier in their school career so that way they can kind of figure out, what am I doing by the time they get to college. So if we look more at the Purdue OWL online writing website. Of course, like I said, many of you have probably seen this before, but it's super awesome. So you have this introduction piece here. It has a tab for general writing. So if you're looking at just like the writing process, academic writing, which is super important, mechanics, all of that stuff, super awesome. But more importantly, as we look at this, there's the research and citation part. And so this is where you're going to go through and you're going to figure out, what are we using? What does it look like? So say a student is supposed to write an APA style. If we click on that, it's going to break it down for you. So you have the overview and workshop, you have the formatting and style guide. Let's just go to the formatting and style guide. And if you look at all of this stuff that it gives you more information than you could ever need, right? You have in-text citations on the basics, author footnotes, all that kind of stuff. And it can also give you an example of it as well, which I really like that part, sample paper, because then I'm much more of a visual person, so I can see exactly what does it look like. And they even make comments on the paper to kind of show you what's going on. So it's an awesome website for students, and I think that the quicker they are introduced to this, the better they're going to learn. And so, of course, a presentation about sourcing would not be complete without sources. So these are the two major sources that I used for this presentation, and I can't wait to see some of yours. Thanks for listening.